I was with a group of people the other day, and somebody came up to me and said, "Are you famous?" And I said, "Well, do you know who I am?" And they went, "No, not really." I said, "Well, I'm not very famous then." But I'm Bob Harris. I'm the broadcaster and writer. I'm currently broadcasting Sounds of the 70s. Growing up, my mum was a big radio fan. She had a big stereogram in the corner of the room where you got radio dials and it glowed, and it felt to me like it was almost like sort of putting your hands against a lovely glowing fire. And through that, I began to love the radio. So when 66 happened and the counterculture, or everything, that rather monochrome 50s had now burst into psychedelic 60s. You know, I went up to London with a view to, I wasn't even quite sure what, except I wanted to get into radio in some way. There in London, I started hearing pirate radio. And in particular, John Peel, doing the Perfume Garden on Radio London late at night. And he was playing extraordinary music from the west coast of America, Quicksilver Messenger Service and Country Joe and the Fish. And I mean, I'd never heard of any of these people before. Jefferson Airplane, The Doors, Love. And if I could have just pressed a button and been that person, I would have swapped with him in a heartbeat. So I wanted to meet John. So the Pirates had just been declared illegal. John had moved back to London, and I went over to meet him at his house in Fulham. And it was just the perfect moment because Mark Bolan was there, and John, I became a sort of Peel protege. So John began to gently shepherd me towards Radio 1. Meanwhile, I'm doing gigs around London and starting to DJ. And then, crucially, John introduced me to a producer called Jeff Griffin. And Jeff took me into the BBC. We did a pilot. It was just a holiday. I was sitting in for John on holiday, just 4 programs. But then David Simons, who was doing the Monday program on Sounds of the 70s, resigned, and the BBC offered me his show. And so that was it. That was me underway now, November 1970. The BBC had Top of the Pops, which was the singles show. Top of the Pops was the chart show. Whistle Test was designed to be a showcase for album artists. We all love music, you know, and I think that was the thing about the show. It was very true to the music it was playing. There weren't any sort of big gimmicks or anything like that. The bands just came in and played, and we put cameras on them, and that was it. So, you know, BBC Two said, well, we're not going to pump a load of money into it, but in return for which you guys know what you're doing, we're just going to let you get on with it. So we had the freedom, and that was absolutely key. It was a very creative time. For example, Monty Python's Flying Circus would never have come off a clipboard. It was spontaneous, it was loose, it made mistakes, it was brilliant. At the same time as sometimes it was goofy, and we were kind of the same. We certainly I was learning literally as I went along, but I had never had any ambition for television. I mean, Mike Appleton was the founder of the program, founder and producer. Thinking back on it now, I think Mike was amazing to kind of stick with me and support me as I was learning, but he did. And then it became really popular from being a sort of cult, late night. You're almost guilty to kind of watch what they do. Oh my God, who is the Frank Zappa and you know, Alice Cooper on these late night, but who are these people, you know, to being a really big success. Do you know, it's absolutely amazing now, because I've got a lot of the old scripts. I just kept them Looking back, it's like reading the history of album music in real time, because we were reflecting that in real time. So I'm reading scripts that are going, we have a track tonight from a new band called the Eagles, who have just, put out their first album, and they comprise, Glenn Fry, and their new single is co-written by their lead guitarist and a young singer-songwriter called Jackson Brown. It's amazing to read these scripts now. The program established a reputation quite quickly, where musicians trusted it. They trusted us. Going back to that word integrity, I think they realized that we weren't in any way trying to exploit them, or, what we wanted to do was just to highlight their music in the best possible way. We used to do a lot of sessions, obviously, on Sounds of the 70s. In those days, there was a needle time restriction. You could only play 20 minutes of actual vinyl per show. So if you're doing a 2-hour show, which is what I was doing, how do you fill the rest? Obviously, if you've got live sessions, they are not needle time. So we did 4 sessions per show on Sounds of the 70s in those days, 2 numbers from each of the sessionees. And so that took up a huge part of the show. And that's why I've always loved the idea of having live music, new live music on my shows, because I kind of grew up doing it that way. There's a simplicity about country, 3 chords and the truth. So it's not really very complex. You can grab hold of it quite quickly. It's storytelling within the lyrics. And overriding all of that, I think, is performance music. You can set up its bass, drums, guitar, pedal steel, yes, probably fiddle sometimes, but it's not cut and paste. It's not a vocalist going in and recording 2 lines and then them just cutting and pasting those through it's actual performance music. So it stands out from the so much of the chart stuff, which doesn't have performance as part of it. If that's what you're looking for, if you want your music to have a little bit of heart and soul, come to country. What's more, if you like music from the 70s, you are going to love country music. Also, literally on my country show this week, I played, there's a new single by Brad Paisley and the band Doors, Dawes. It's a rock track. If you love 70s music, you will love this track. And if you love this track, you'll like 70s music. There's such an overlap now. I think there's such a connection between what I'm doing on Sounds of the 70s and the music then and the music we're hearing from country now. Right now, this last couple of weeks, where I've been hosting the main stage at Country to Country, and we have our backstage studio in what's called the Fab Room, which is a little room backstage, where all the artists, the country artists, come in and play. They all just set up in front of us, and they come in and play. And when you've got people like Lainey Wilson just sitting there, giving everything to their performance, 2 inches away, and it's such a privilege to be that person, to be in the company of great artists and experience their music in this way. So, to be absolutely honest, is where do I start? There are so many great artists that I love right now. And one of my absolute favorite people right now is Lucas Nelson. Lucas is the son of Willie Nelson. He's got his own solo album coming out now. I've heard some of the music from that, and it's fantastic. There's a new young fan base, and I mean young, teens into 20s who love country music, because I think, well, there's lots of reasons why. One of them being that the lyrics of the songs so accurately reflect their lives, and they can identify, even if it's Bar Song Tipsy, from Shabuzi, it's kind of got a vibe that's reflecting where they are in their lives right now. But then, you just think about the country songs that Taylor Swift was writing. She was writing the lives of the girls that were listening to her music, and country music has always been like that. Yeah. So I think the fans really identify with the artists in terms of what they're actually saying. My daughter Flo, who's now 27, she and I were in the car when she was a little bit younger, and we were listening to the radio as we were driving along, and a track came on that was very heavily auto-tuned. It was a pop track. And I said, oh my God, Flo, listen to that. It's so artificial. She said, I don't care. I don't care. She said, if I like the music, I like the music. And she just hears it as music.
Yep.
There's no distinction with her. Oh, that's country. I don't like country. I think I'll reject that. You know, my kids are amazed at the tribalism that existed in the 70s.
Yeah. Music feels like it's becoming less album-based. It's more single-based because people live their lives on shuffle.
Oh, I mean, the changes that have taken place. I was going to say over the last 50 years, but it's even less than that, over the last sort of 5 years, I would say, where now artists are thinking less and less about albums and more about individual tracks, which, okay, eventually get collected together as albums, or maybe you've got a deluxe edition of the album. But with all the options now that are available on social media, on Spotify, iTunes, all of that, you can tease tracks out. Or, you know, you've got a couple of new songs, just go into the studio,
Yep.
record them and put them out. You've got so many options now, and I really love that. I think that's great. It's ironic that the opportunities have never been wider, the realities have never been more difficult, you know. One of my favourite artists is Carly Pearce, and there is actually a very lovely story about me and Carly, because I arrived in Nashville, I think it was summer of 2017, for the Americana Music Awards there. And I got into the hire car, was driving out from the airport, and as I always did, once I got onto the interstate going into Nashville, switched on the radio, switched on WSIX, which is the main mainstream country music station in Nashville. And there's this record playing that I thought was just an amazing record. Anyway, this song was called Every Little Thing. And when I got to the hotel, I called my country show producer, Mark Hagan, and said, when we come back out for the CMA Awards in November, can we organise to get a session in from Carly Pearce? Because she is, this song is just, I love it so much. Well, when she came in November, Every Little Thing had gone to #1. And we really bonded, and she told me her story, you know, taken her 10 years for the breakthrough. It had been really tough, and somebody had heard the song and said, this is a song that's going to change your life. So when she did her first really big show in London about 2 or 3 years ago, she got on stage, and I was sitting with all the Big Machine people right at the back, and she was about halfway through the set, and Flo gave me a nudge, and so I'm sitting there, and she said, and Carly Pearce is on stage, and she goes, there's somebody here in the audience that I just want to give a shout out to, because he's been so important to my career. I don't think I would be here in the UK without his support. So if we could get lights up, so I just want to shout, Bill, where are you? You know, Bill, Bill? Where is it? You know, we're sitting at the back there, and somebody, the audience has started going, it's Bob, it's Bob, you know. And she's going, and all of a sudden she went, oh my God, because there's a whispering Bill Anderson in Nashville, and she'd had a couple of glasses of rosé. She was very nervous, and she just everything had got sort of morphed together. She was absolutely mortified. So Flo went back to see her after the gig, and she was crying in the dressing room. Honestly, she was really upset. So I sent her a text, and the text read, "Dear Chloe, everything's fine. Love, Bill." And since that moment, she and I have known each other as Chloe and Bill. I feel like I've got this wonderful, and it is an exciting responsibility, to represent these artists in the best way that I possibly can, to create the space, open it up for them, and be the guy who supports them and introduces their music and their ideas to the audience that listen to my shows. I mean, I honestly really do feel like I was genuinely, I'm supposed to do this. I was put on this earth to do this. And you start, and there's hardly anybody watching. But then next week, there's a bit of word of mouth, and 2 become 4, become 8, become 60, become 32, become 64, become 128. And there's a tipping point where 100,000 becomes 200,000, becomes 400,000, becomes 8. It only needs that one person to tell that other one person.
Was there a moment on TV or radio, any broadcast moment, where the wheels completely fell off? A moment that people don't know about?
Yeah. Oh, people don't know about. The only time I got very drunk on air once. It's the only time I ever did. I was working at Radio 210 in Reading, just outside of Reading, probably about 77, somewhere. The Greg Kinn Band, who I loved, arrived. I was doing 9 till 1 a.m., 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. a show on a Friday night, and they called in just like they were passing, and they came in with a couple of bottles of Courvoisier or something. I can't really remember. And
Not surprised.
No. And it was about 11:30 that I realised that the wheels were coming off in such a big way. And once that begins to happen, it's very hard to recover back to where you think you ought to be. And I just thought to myself, well, this is now what it is, and we'll deal with the complaints if and when we get them. I'm a big believer in this. Keep going until you get that cease and desist letter. Up until then, just keep going. I just feel like if I've made mistakes or if I've done great stuff, whatever it is, ultimately you have to own it. There's no point in trying to put the wheels back on it. The wheels fell off. That's what happened. We had an issue with a lyric in Dark Side of the Moon, Money. I played Money on Sounds of Seventies a couple of weekends ago, and of course it's got bullshit in it. And I work on that show with an independent production company, and Tom from the company was in the studio with me, and he didn't know the track particularly well. And when the word bullshit went through, he went, "Oh my God, it's only 3:15 in the afternoon kind of thing. Oh my God, you have to apologize at the end of the track. If anybody's been offended, you have to say." And I said, well, let's just take the view that we didn't even notice. We weren't paying attention. And if we got a confetti conveyor belt of complaints, I'll address them. So why don't we just have that as the arrangement here? If we get complaints, I will address them. If we don't, then let's just move on. Obviously not one person complained. And you go, okay, great. So I've become an ambassador for the Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust. And our idea is that we want to get more information to hospitals so that they can more readily identify what this is. I mean, it's very, very time sensitive. So if you don't deal with it quickly, the chances are you're not going to come through it. And I did come through mine. And there's this absolutely incredible woman called Catherine Fowler who lost her dad to a misdiagnosed dissection. And then I discovered she'd partnered with Pauline Latham, MP, who lost her son to a dissection, a wonderful surgeon heart surgeon, Graham Cooper, who, well, they were the power trio, and then they asked me to join them as an ambassador. And so I have done, and we've been working together for 3 or 4 years now. And a lot via the contacts within the government, quite honestly. So we're still able to continue the work. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of, actually. I must be honest, of things through the years that I've done, helping to establish ADCT has been right up there for me. Go onto the website. Either go onto my website, which is bobharris.org. You don't have to scroll down very far on the front page to find the link, or it's the Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust. We're on social media. Again, my Instagram is at WhisperingBob. So you can find the pathway to them through me. It basically is the easiest way to do it. Yeah, 2,000 lives could be saved each year, and that's the target. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you for enduring my questions.
Cheers.